The jetpack. It's one of those interesting pieces of Star Wars technology that actually has a real-life working counterpart. Now, in our world, jetpack technology has mainly been driven by military funding. Unfortunately, because of the limitations of these devices, no jetpack has really been used in a real-life military operation. There are major concerns with the reliability and also the limited flight time these devices offer. However, in the Star Wars universe, jetpack technology is well established and it's actually routinely used by the various warring factions. In today's video, I want to take a look at the history of jetpacks in Star Wars, why they were first used, and what eventually happened when conventional militaries adopted their usage en masse. Hopefully this will give us a little bit of insight of what will happen in our own world when one day jetpacks are efficient enough to be used by civilians and also our military forces. The moment the jet engine was invented in the Star Wars galaxy, I'm sure people started trying to figure out how to make a jetpack soon after. But wider adoption of a technology is not just about the ability to create it, but also the demand there is for that product. And for the jetpack, at least, the need came directly from the Mandalorian Crusaders. You see, back in the day, the Mandalorians weren't just a bunch of nomads wandering around the galaxy looking for mercenary or bounty hunting work. At one point in time, they were unified behind a Mandalore, and the Mandalorian people were carving out their own empire in the Outer Rim territories. You see, the Mandalorians weren't just obsessed with warfare. It wasn't just about the power or territory or even riches. They actually really enjoyed the act of fighting and dominating one's opponents. The Mandos would defeat one world after another and occasionally absorb the technology and ideas of worthy defeated foes. Now, all of this went really well for the Mandalorians until they ran into the Republic and their Jedi Guardians. During their first encounter, these strange monks wearing no armor and only equipped with laser swords decimated the Mandalorians. These Jedi had increased speed, strength, and could dodge or reflect any energy weapon the warriors could fire at them. The Mandalorians understood that they needed to drastically change their tactics and their equipment to face this new Jedi threat. They would adopt more Mandalorian iron or Beskar into their armor, which was lightsaber resistant. They would also include all sorts of hidden anti-Jedi weapons to their armor as well, like flamethrowers and explosive darts. But by far, the most important addition the Mandalorians added to their arsenal was the jetpack. This is because the average Mandalorian was usually heavily armored and slow, and also relied on ranged weapons to defeat their enemies, whereas the Jedi were lightly armored and superhuman fast and relied on melee weapons. For a Mandalorian to stand a chance against a Jedi, they had to maintain a distance between themselves and the Force user. Jetpacks gave a Mandalorian a similar level of mobility and verticality, which allowed them to continue to use their most effective weapons against a Jedi, which are all going to be ranged weapons. The Mandalorians would adapt well to the Jedi threat, and they would actually take the weapons they designed to use against the Jedi and also apply them to other types of jobs, including fighting non-Force sensitives. During the Crusader and Neo-Crusader periods in Mandalorian history, jetpacks were usually only given to special commando units. Once the Mandalorians were scattered as a people after the disastrous defeat of Mandalore the Ultimate at Malachor V, only the richest and most successful mercenaries would wear these jetpacks. But then along came the creation of the Clone Army, which would use Jango Fett's DNA for its main template. The Kaminoan-created Clone Army would be trained by 100 advisors, hand-selected by Jango Fett himself. Most of these individuals were Mandalorian, and given the lack of experience the Kaminoans had on human physiology and also warfare, the Mandalorians would play an important role as advisors for all future equipment and armor being designed for the clones. They're also most likely instrumental in creating the Clone Jetpack Trooper program. These were specifically trained clones who used the DC-15A blaster carbine along with the JT-12 jetpack. The JT-12 jetpack and the larger Z6 jetpack were amongst the most popular models when it came to backpack propulsion during this era. It should be noted that jetpacks required atmosphere to work. There were, however, rocket packs which were much faster, and these were self-contained units that didn't need an air intake for propulsion. What made the JT-12 and Z6 so much better than anything we have here on Earth is the size and power of these units. In the Star Wars galaxy, you clearly have more advanced propulsion systems combined with more energy-dense fuel. This allows for much longer flight times and much lighter systems for these troopers to carry. And so these weren't just jetpacks that you would wear for a portion of the mission or just for an obstacle you need to scale. When clones entered the battle, they would usually have these jetpacks, and when they left, they still had these jetpacks, oftentimes still with fuel left. Even though these jetpacks were extremely useful on the battlefield and gave the average infantryman a lot more mobility, they still weren't really deployed in larger units. Instead, what usually happened was a company-sized unit was given these jetpacks and then attached to a larger battalion or legion-sized force. For instance, the 2nd Airborne Company was a jetpack unit that was attached to the 212th, and the 332nd Company was the jetpack unit attached to the 501st. These jetpack troopers were considered light infantry, and their company-sized forces were usually tasked with the same missions that paratroopers would have been given back in the day. Seize enemy territory, usually behind enemy lines, and neutralize weapons emplacements, and hold on just long enough so that the infantry can arrive to reinforce. Current jetpack designs are way too slow, they're bulky, they're hard to control, and they just don't have a very long flight time. They're also really easy targets for small arms fire. You have all sorts of jetpacks ranging from the Martin jetpack, which is a massive beast that weighs over 200 kilograms. It's actually more like a jet VTOL vehicle than it is a jetpack. Then you also have things like the Jetpack H202Z, which is much smaller but only has a limited flight time of less than 1 minute. And so right now, these jetpacks have really limited use. Recently, paramedics in the United Kingdom's Lake District tested out Gravity Industries jetpack units and used it to climb a mountain in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds. This is usually a journey that takes around 1 hour and 20 minutes to hike. Jetpacks can be very useful for search and rescue missions where helicopters are either unavailable or unable to access a location because of the geography. Now, current jetpacks do have an altitude limitation, but I'm pretty sure they can get the air and fuel mixture correct so that they can function in higher altitudes. Also, I'm pretty sure these limitations are created because of the lack of flight time these units have. If they can solve that, I'm pretty sure jetpacks can help rescuers reach areas that helicopters struggle to fly to, like high altitude areas in the Himalayas. We've also seen the Royal Navy test the same jetpack unit at sea. An operator was able to take off from a small fast boat and land on the deck of a larger naval ship. The individual was able to board the ship extremely quickly, a lot faster than any individual would be able to do on a helicopter or a fast boat. Obviously, in a contested landing, the jetpack is vulnerable again to small arms fire because of its slow speed and bulk. These are the major limitations we see in modern jetpacks, and this is why we don't really use them in military operations. Now, on the other hand, in Star Wars, it seems like jetpacks there lack all of these limitations. Now, at an individual level, Mandalorians first used their jetpacks mainly to stay alive when facing the Jedi and to stay out of reach of their dangerous lightsabers, as we mentioned before. Strategies and moves were developed on the fly by these Mandalorians, and moves that worked against the Jedi were brought back by survivors and taught to others. During the Mandalorian Crusader and Neo-Crusader periods, we would see small units of Mandalorian commandos being used as almost a vanguard shock force that was designed to strike enemy positions and open holes in their defensive lines. Now, later clone and Imperial forces would also adopt the use of jetpack troopers for flanking and exposing weaknesses in enemy positions. But what made the Mandalorians unique in their use of the jetpack was that they didn't only use it for transportation, they actually used it as a firing platform to launch attacks from. You see, Mandalorians weren't really soldiers, they were more like warriors. They didn't just fight for coin or professionalism. Warfare was a part of their belief system, and how they fought was important, so they would spend most of their resting time learning how to become better warriors. And a huge factor in the Mandalorian success lies in the legend that surrounds these individuals. They were feared by almost everyone. And the Mandalorians knew this, and so it wasn't uncommon for them to launch aggressive jetpack-fueled attacks straight into the heart of enemy formations. You see, Earth soldiers would get cut to pieces if they tried such an audacious maneuver. But the Mandalorian super commandos equipped with jetpacks were also usually equipped with Beskar, which made them invincible to most small arms fire. And so it was perfectly reasonable for these crazy individuals to jump right into the middle of an enemy position and start exchanging blaster fire at ridiculously close ranges. This was terrifying for an unarmored defensive force and usually led to a quick rout. In this way, the Mandalorian jetpack supercommandos weren't all that different from shock cavalry. They had the same mobility advantage, and they also had very heavy armor and shock factor that could turn the battle within seconds. The Imperial and Clone Trooper doctrine for jetpack usage was a lot less bold, and that was because their armor was nowhere near as heavy or effective. We see this major difference between the two groups during the Siege of Mandalore when the Republic forces begin their attack on the planet in a large swarm of gunships. The Mandalorian Night Owls exit the gunships the second they come under heavy AA fire and fire from their enemy, the Death Watch commandos, who are also equipped with jetpacks. The 332nd Company, an attachment of veteran clone troopers equipped with jetpacks, stay aboard their gunships and try to fire at the Death Watch Mandos from inside. The 332nd Company is probably not as used to aerial combat using their jetpacks and only have limited experience in doing it. It's only when the clone troopers start suffering heavy casualties that they begin exiting their ships and following the Night Owls into aerial combat. And so you see, Imperial and clone trooper jetpack units only really use their jetpacks for positioning. Jetpack troopers can use the complete verticality of any battlefield and easily outflank any normal infantry unit. They can also be used as scouting or screening forces for much larger units. But as far as Republican Imperial doctrine goes, it seems like jetpack troopers are supposed to only fire when they are stationary and landed. They're not supposed to fire while they're floating above the ground because it's not a really good stable platform for them to fire from, and also it's very easy for enemy marksmen to single them out and target them. Now, sometimes you did have contested boarding sequences where jetpacks or rocket pack troopers were used to breach a location. But in general, think of these troopers more as airborne rather than shock cavalry like what the Mandalorian super commandos actually were. The biggest advantage is their mobility and not necessarily their offensive firepower. If jetpacks here on Earth ever become efficient enough to be used in military operations, I'm pretty sure that the doctrine that will be developed will be a lot closer to what the clones and the Imperial forces use rather than what the super commandos use. Because if there's something that's never changed about warfare, it's the fact that mobility, maneuvering, and outflanking your enemy is always going to be the quickest road to victory. So there you have it, guys. That's my assessment of Star Wars jetpack military doctrine. Let me know in the comment sections below what you think. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.